fellow Homo sapiens. Today we're going to take a deep dive into the evolution of our species, and we're going to focus on these two of our ancient ancestors. Helping me out today is Fred, an Australopithecus africanus skull, and Ginger, a Homo erectus skull. We're going to start off with Fred. Now, Fred would have had ape-like and human-like traits. The first thing that I want you to notice is if you're looking at these two skulls, look how much smaller the brain case is for Australopithecus than it is for Homo erectus. Let's add popcorn for scale. Now, popcorn here is a little bit bigger than the Australopithecus skull. The skull for Australopithecus would have had a volume somewhere around 450 cc's, and Homo erectus, like Ginger over here, would have had somewhere between 950 to 1250 cc's. I did print these off to scale, so you are seeing about what the real life size would be for these two individuals. Now, if we're looking from the top down, you can see how much more sloping the face is for Fred than it is for Ginger. So the Australopithecus skull slopes a lot more than the Homo erectus skull. Now we're going to flip them over and look at two things. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is, this would be a hole, but obviously it's filled in for the 3D print. So this hole right here and right here are the same hole. They're called the foramen magnum. And this is where the spinal cord connects to the brain. It's how it gets into the brain case. Now, one of the ways that we know that Australopithecus was bipedal was because this feature, the foramen magnum, is closer to the center of the skull than on, say, a modern chimpanzee. You can see from this comparison here. If we bring back Ginger, our Homo erectus, you can see that as we move through time, the foramen magnum is continuing to move further and further into the center of the skull. Take a look at this animation of an Australopithecus skeleton and the skeleton of a modern human walking side by side. You'll notice that their gaits are slightly different. The Australopithecus had more mobile foot joints than modern humans because their feet were still adapting to walking on the ground. So they have a little bit more of a wobbly gait because those foot joints haven't locked up yet. But they're still fairly similar. Now take a look at the comparison between Lucy and a chimpanzee skeleton. There's a drastic difference here because chimpanzees aren't bipedal. Alright, so the last thing that I want you to take a look at here is their teeth. I know it's hard to see on Fred, our Australopithecus, but here is his teeth. Particularly with the molars, you can see that the teeth are much larger and broader in the Australopithecus than they are in Homo erectus. Because by the time we get to Ginger over here, our Homo erectus, humans are eating a lot more meat to get more calories to support this bigger brain. They're also doing things like using tools to help process their food so that they don't need to use their teeth as tools as much to cut. In addition to that, Homo erectus was also using fire, so they could eat a lot bigger variety of things than Australopithecus could. So Ginger could eat things that may have been inedible if you didn't cook them. So she had a lot more calories available to her. It's really cool to see how cultural things like the use of tools and cooking led to evolutionary changes in our species.